You're listening to Radio Primavera Sound, proudly presented by Cupra.
Hello, this week on Line Noise, my guest is the humble titan that is Mark Pritchard, an English producer who has made everything from jungle to ambient, grime to techno, and a lot more than that, actually. He really has done it all. Maybe I'll put together a playlist. Anyway, notably, he's teamed up with Thom Yorke, who I'm sure you all know, for a new album, Tall Tales, that we released on the 9th of May. And it was lovely to speak to him. We talked about the added expectation of creating an album with one of the world's biggest rock stars and the fascinating creative back and forth of recording Tall Tales. We talked about the bassoon and the core anglais, because of course we did, about Leslie speakers, rock drums, and a whole load more. He really is he's a great interviewee, very thoughtful, very open. So I really hope you enjoy it. And don't forget, Line Noise comes to you with the support of Cupra. You're obviously a very highly respected electronic music producer, but you are releasing an album with someone who's one of the most, biggest rock stars in the world. I think we can safely say most kind of respected. I was wondering, like, how different it is, if it feels a bit weird.
Yeah, it's definitely been. Yeah, I've been trying to find a way to talk about this because, I've noticed it. I've noticed the difference. Especially I did the track with him before, and obviously that brought a lot of people. You just get a lot of different people coming in, like a huge, which is good. Which is what I guess is ideally what you want, is to reach some new people. But of course, I guess the difference is when you're doing a certain, if you're doing underground dance music in certain areas, people come in and then you get less, you're probably getting less of the wider reach. But people seem to understand, and then you're then getting a wider reach, you're getting a lot of very different people that some of them are really not going to like the stuff, because so you're having to deal with a lot more of that, which is, I guess, I've not had as much of over the years, and I guess that's an adjustment. And I guess with the current state of things, the online version of promoting a record, which I guess is grown and grown over the past 10, 15 years, it's very different to I guess when I started, you put the music out, do a few interviews, you had no idea whether anybody liked it or not. You didn't get hardly any feedback. Really, you might find out 10 years later that somebody liked it in a place, or somebody that you like their music, or just somebody in a country that you've never been to like the music or whatever. Whereas the modern days that you put something up and you're just getting lots of reactions, which is like, and it takes. I don't like. I've never been a huge fan of social media anyway. I don't really want particularly, I guess because I'm from that period, I saw it early on enough to know that a good review or a bad review, I don't pay too much. I don't need it. I don't need that. I'm doing the music anyway, and I'm trying to make it good. I don't know, and I guess it's nice to hear good reactions, that's for certain. But it's not something that I've had, because I've growing up that way. It's not something that I've had to, have to have the confidence wise or whatever to feel good. But yeah, it's an adjustment you have to make, and also it's addictive.
The attention, you mean? The
social media methods that I guess everybody uses, they're built to be addictive, aren't they? So you have to. So I notice when I'm posting a lot that I can see it straight away happening. I always I guess because I work on projects for long periods, I might not post that much for quite long periods, and then when you start posting, and then you're doing a lot of posting, all those mechanisms that are built in that everybody else, I guess, if they're on there every day, they're having to deal with, and it's well known that it's a problem for and it's well known how they work and what they're doing, I could, yeah, straight. I was like, shit, I'm gonna have to have a detox. I'm gonna have to, when the record's out, I'm gonna have to, because I just find myself looking to my phone. It's like, yeah, I'm scrolling, I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, what am I doing? It's like, yeah, so I'm gonna have to have an adjustment at some point, to yeah, because it's not really like it. It's There's lots of research, lots of books been written on it.
So, I mean, the album, it's a beautiful album, by the way. I really, really enjoyed it.
Cheers.
It's called, I'm interested, it's called Tall Tales, right? Which is sort of, I understand by tall tales, like, not quite lies, but sort of like a tale you tell people that's not exactly true, sort of slightly exaggerated.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you were thinking of?
I think it kind of, I guess when you're working on a project, you just hope a name's going to come at some point, unless you're really lucky and you have one at the start, or something strong in a track name, or something inspired you. I guess with lyrics, there could be something there, and there was nothing obviously to start with. I mean, Tom's really good at coming up with names, so I thought at some point the name's going to come, because the worst thing is I haven't got a name and the record's done, and then it's getting closer and closer, and you can't force those things. I mean, there's things you can do to help find words, or you can go off on sort of research something and go off into some deep dive in something, and sometimes that can throw up something. But the first thing I did is I just looked at lyrics. So once all the songs are in, I actually asked him for the lyrics, because I wanted it for myself, but I also wanted it for Jonathan, because knowing what he is actually saying all the way through can be quite useful. To, not that you want to go with it, but then you can decide whether you want to go against it or you want to leave space visually. And it's useful for me to have the lyrics if I'm EQing words or I'm automating words and I want to make something feel a different way. If I know what he's saying, I can push diction to make it sound more, to point you towards what the words are. And not to say that you should do that all the time, because I think that he's not really printed his lyrics before, but because I think he likes it just to be you work out what it is, your own interpretation of it, and that's also valid. But I went looking through the lyrics to see if there's anything, because there often is. And Tall Tales, kind of, it was the only thing that jumped out. I was like, I saw it. I mean, the line is like, they're these two clowns telling tall tales. We called that track Tall Tales, and I was just like, that's an all right one. That's there. It's at least there's something there, and it just sat there for a while. I wasn't convinced that it was going to be the title, but then Jonathan's reacting to this project with the visual world, there was more. The more he was doing, the more, because there are some like fairy tale storybook type things going on in some of the visuals, like things like the men who dance in stags' heads. There's almost like a picture book, and some of the backgrounds are kind of remind me of stuff from when I was a kid, mixed with the kind of sharp CGI in the front, and then the background quite blown out. So that's another area of tales, I guess. And there's lots of what Jonathan was drawing on for the inspiration for the visual world was quite vast. There's myths in there. There's various stories of how something like the Thinker statue on the front cover was stolen, and then they tried cutting it up to sell the bronze, because bronze had gone up. So Jonathan's finding all of these things that in inspirations for the visual world that he's building that is quite big. And I guess it became more and more appealing. And I guess that line, I interpreted that line is that in Tall Tales that it was the period we were in, which was lockdown, is kind of, and Brexit, lockdown, mismanagement of lockdown, mess. You got how the UK are dealing with it, how America's dealing with it. You got Trump first time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, I interpreted it that way. I mean, I'm not entirely sure. I never really asked Tom, because I'm the same. I don't really want to know. Like, I want to make my own thing. He did tell us he told us bits and pieces. He was reluctant to say much because he knows the best thing is to let somebody, just like Jonathan, for example, to let them react and interpret it in their own way. You don't want a video made of the literal meaning of the video of the song. It's like so he was wary, but he did offer up a few things. Like he told us that that song was inspired by the Benjamin Myers book Gallows Pole. Really useful because it just happened to have some tie-ins that the I guess Jonathan had found this place in Scotland that had, it's when the price of oil goes down, it costs more to keep the oil rigs in the sea than you're just losing money. So they bring them into this bay so it's like a dystopian film scene where you've just got this beautiful bay up in Scotland with just loads of oil rigs that are just sitting there. He'd found that place that also had a Fearish monument, which he then looked into the story of, which was the person that owned that land at that point decided to build this monument for the local workers to have work. I think the guy was also, if you go back in history that far, that they're usually dodgy, but he did a good thing to do this, to give people work, and he then prolonged the period of, so that it went for longer. He found a couple of stories that were interesting, and he'd found that Faker statue, the thinker statue that had the cut up with the bronze, to do with like the price of it, and then the gallows pole is about coin filing. People used to shave off coins, so that's why you see a lot of coins that are found from certain periods. They often have these. You can see the corners are shaved off.
Yeah,
which I had seen but never really clocked. So these things started kind of evolving, and that was great to have another one of those. And Jonathan took from that, and the coin became a something that's quite important to the project. It's in one of the videos, it's one of the logos, it's in Gangsters as well. So I guess these things kind of evolve, and then we're like, well, actually this fits.
Yeah,
it seems to fit. And I guess I probably had a conversation with Tom at some point. I was just like, well, Tall Tales is still there and it feels good, what do you think? And he was just like, yeah, I think it's, I think it works. Sometimes it can be too try hard to find a really like a surreal word, or something about it felt right, not being too tricky, not being trying to be too clever, or sometimes that feels like the right thing to do.
I was going to like, I should say it's Jonathan Sawada who's done the videos, the film that accompanies the album. One thing that really interests me about it is that obviously you've done so many different genres of music, and sometimes it feels to me on Tall Tales a bit like what you are making is almost like electronic rock music. Like the drums sound quite rock in a way, that. Like I mean, in quite a few places I noted down a fake in a faker's world, but it happens quite a lot. Was that something you were thinking of, making it more slightly rock feel?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I think for a while I was kind of, for about 10 years or so, I've been playing around with drum machines that are preset drum machines, because I guess I did it a couple of times and realized, oh, this is really interesting, because you're stuck with a preset pattern that can often be quite cheesy. It's not a pattern I'd program necessarily, but then I find if there'd be like a bossa nova, or it'd be a rock rock one, pop pattern, you know, and they're very kind of basic patterns. But if you get the right tempo, I found that if you get the right tempo on that pattern with the right effects, you can get something really interesting. And also recording it out speakers sometimes. There's a whole load of different things that you can do to, because those drum machines they're difficult to mix. They're not as defined as the later drum machines. The kick drums are kind of like a lumpy kind of it's like a big load of low end, not particularly defined. The snare drum's usually made out of some kind of like shaped sine wave low conga with white noise layered, and the hats are usually white noise, shaped white noise. But they're very unpredictable in the patterns are the same, but they have a life of their own. They go out of time, they shift timing, the pattern itself is not as perfect. So I like that about it. And then I found that if you just put it through the right effect, which people have been doing for years. I mean, people were doing that in the 70s, weren't they? Like new wave and kind of the krautrock stuff. They were using drum machines and just messing them up. It was a good route, and it's a good way of me getting different things. So I've been doing that for a while, and it just so happened that I guess 4 or 5 of these ended up on this record. I thought about doing live drums on a couple, but then it just didn't feel like it wasn't needed. So yeah, and I think that the fact that it's not like if you program a drum sounds, you can get the separate drum sounds, you can program them, but then I can spend ages moving them around, but there's something about even if you go to the 808 and 909s, which are programmable, there's something about the club music that was made in Chicago and Detroit with those machines running live, syncing the synthesizers off of them, which I guess was done with a clock. But they are slightly drifting, and it's not the same snare drum every time. If you look at the waveform on an 808, it's not exactly. It's very close, but it's not exactly the same. There's some imperfections, and I guess I've been thinking about that for years. And it's like, why is it that we like these things? Not to say that modern music's not as good, because I like stuff when it's programmed and people using plugins and people doing new things. But there's something about that maybe is less fatiguing to listen to. It's not the same thing over and over again. And if you're dealing with a song that's long, or I find I enjoy listening to stuff from that period, and it doesn't kind of get as boring, I guess. And there's something nice about things drifting, so trying to get that kind of stuff in. But I think you're right, there is a mid-range aspect to them, maybe that are, there's an aggressiveness, like Faking a Faker's World. To me, it's kind of like a dancehall pattern, kind of almost a dancehall pattern. I just did it at a really weird slow at that tempo. The fills, every time I kind of clicked to fill in, it was going double speed, so it kind of has this half speed, double speed thing going on. And it was a live take, so I'd have recorded that drum machine CR78 in Hamburg. I recorded that like in 2012 or something. And yeah, I just recorded it for 17 minutes, and then it sat there. I put that bass line over it. It was actually in a slightly different part of the bar. Tom shifted it on bar. It had a different pad, like a string pad in it, but he took the string pad out and then put a whole new song, a different demo over the top. That was an ambient demo, synth kind of type thing. He just chopped that over the top, which is kind of really cool that he then, he's taking some of the ideas I sent him, because some of them were more arranged and more developed, and some of them were, just a simple drum beat with a bass that hadn't really found exactly what it was going to be. But I gave him a mixture of things, and I guess on that one he took 2 of the demos and chopped them together, added a whole modular synth section in the middle, added a few chords later on, and then sung on it. So yeah, I guess that they have I guess maybe it's the mid-range, and they're not as, you're stuck with a feel, on those things. Whereas like if I'm programming rhythms for clubs, I'm really focusing on the feel and getting the groove right and the feel right. Whereas with this, you're stuck with the feel, and then you have to put stuff around it to count, to offset that.
I was going to say, it kind of reminded me a little bit of those Sly and the Family Stone records that have really basic drum machines on. Have you seen that the documentary about Sly?
Yeah, I watched it like quite recently. Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, really, really interesting. And then like another one of those, it gets to the point sometimes where you're watching, if you watch a lot of documentaries about like, legendary musicians, influential musicians, it starts to get a bit like, oh God, every single story is a sad story. These kind of geniuses that go through this stuff and end up living in a car. It's like, please, can we just have one with a happy ending? I'm sure there are some.
This one ended happily enough in the end. I mean, after many difficult years, but
yeah, definitely.
I'm interested in what you say about the recording process, like you sending things back. Is that typically how it worked? You'd send over ideas, Tom would do stuff to them, send them back. You'd do stuff to them, send them back. I mean, how much were you like ping-ponging around?
I think I guess maybe half of the songs he just sang over them, and so he could do the vocal, send it back, and then I would mess around with the vocal, and then you can kind of tell they're going to work, or he had to write some more lyrics. The basic vibe was there, and then he had to write some more words, and then he would deliver it, and then it would kind of work. And then there was the rest of it. There was needed to be some pulling around, like stuff needed taken out. The tempo had, I think on the Spirit, that had a different drum beat on it originally. It had loads more melodies in it. And he took the drums out, and then he'd put a guide, simple kick and snare, electronic kick and snare into sing to, which sometimes you can put that in and it actually that shows you the right thing. And I was like, probably could work with this, but then I was like, I don't know whether it needs. Something was saying this may be better with no drums, and I was thinking about what drums to put on it. I was thinking about getting Clive Deamer to play on it, and I was thinking about types of drum patterns or sounds to do. And then something was just saying, don't put any drums on. Then we slowed that one down, tuned it down one note, all of the audio that was there, drop it all down one, which slowed the tempo, which seemed to help on the key that it was in. Taking the drums out also seemed to help. And then he sang it, and then he finally got the vocal, that one's very much about the vocal delivery, and then making space for that. And he'd sung it a few times, and then he was like, I know what I need to do. I need to make it first person perspective, and I need to just deliver. I just need to get this right. I need to deliver it right. And then he got into the right headspace for that, did that. And then I took the drums out, and then the mission was, okay, how am I going to get this to work? Like, it's really minimal. There's no drums. And so then it was like, okay, just start to put something. I think put live bass in first, some percussion, but nothing constant, just one-off bits of percussion marking certain sections, and just sort of keep trying things until I edit a bit. And then it was like, well, this is starting to work. My friend played piano on it, did some very speed piano, replayed some synth parts, added a few things, and it was like, sent Tom's vocal to my friend in the UK. He put it out speakers and recorded the room sound. It's like all these things slowly added up to it starting to make sense. So that some tracks were like that. They had to be backwards and forwards. Back in the Game was another one like that, where the original demo had no drums in it, and it was kind of like a John Carpenter horror film sort of type thing, just a synthesizer and a couple of effects really. And then I had tried drums on it, a couple of different drum parts on it, but I was like, yeah, that will work as a different thing, but I'm not going to send in the one with drums. And then Tom was like, I think you should try some drums on it. So I tried a couple more drums, and then kind of worked, and then I had another go and used these drums that my friend had recorded from this organ. It's like a 1969 Lowry organ that hasn't got drum patterns, but it's got like a pad that you just like kick drum, snare, hi-hat, open hi-hat, conga or something. He just recorded each one of those like 20-30 times, mic'd up close and room mics. And then I tried that on it, and that instantly worked. And then I added another drum machine to it. I think the second drum attempt I did, Tom was like, "Yeah, that's it, you've nailed it." And then I used the Lowry drums, and I was like, "This is even better." And then he used some of the Mattel drums that I sent him, which is like another later drum machine, to kind of pick it up in some sort of sections. And that one was going backwards and forwards. Like the drums went on, and then he sang it in all falsetto, and I was like, and then sang the ending lower register. And I was like, I thought my instinct was he should sing it all low. But then I guess there was something about him singing the falsetto and the way he was singing it was also working. There's a bit of I was pushing it, he was pushing it a certain way, and then he backed up the high with a low vocal, but he wasn't convinced. And then I worked on that for a while to get it to work better together. And then he was like, "Okay, cool, I'll re-sing that again." So this kind of stuff going backwards and forwards, and it was just really that's kind of great. That's the good part of collaboration, I guess.
I wonder though, sometimes it almost seems like there's a world of infinite possibility. Like, does that ever sort of slightly get to you or drive you a bit mad? Because I mean, you're talking about things like it seems, just on one song it could have been a million different ways. You talk about like, taking the tone down one note or something like that, or like I don't know, putting different drums on another bit. Do you ever, I don't know, obviously in one way that's exciting, but in another way, does it sort of send you a bit mad?
Like it's stressful when it's not working and it keeps not working. But I guess there's usually a point where something shows you're going in the right way. If you're lucky. So I guess there's two of us, and we're both, even though sometimes we might be pushing, we're both thinking about this and then talking about it. What was going to help this? And we both had to solve problems, and he's had to solve a lot more song problems than me. So I'm listening. So he obviously knows what he's talking about, and so I'm like, okay. And then, but it's also good to kind of push against that sometimes. It can get stressful when you can't nail it, and I was very stressed about the Spirit song for a long period. That's why I tried to attack it early, because you need time. You have a go, and then you need space, and that's why I attacked all the ones that needed, though that I knew had issues. Try and get some of those resolved early, because you start feeling good as you start solving those things. Then that's another weight off of because it does feel like it's 12 songs, there's a mountain to climb, and then as you start to solve these things, you're like, okay, these are starting to make sense. It's really good when you start putting them down, and I left that a little bit late, because as you start putting them down, that starts to somehow it just clear, it's giving it lightens the load, and you can kind of put that away, and then you can then focus on your headspace is then going on. All right, I'm going to sort this one out. It's rare to get them like all right. I've never. Usually might be 14 tracks or 12 tracks or 10 or whatever it's going to be for an album, and there's one or two, and I just can't get them. No matter how I try, and I'll just go off. I'll spend a whole month trying to. So I'm battle. How am I going to get this? And I just keep going, and it's sometimes you just can't get it. And I was worried about that. Obviously, I was like, because I liked the song. It felt like a good balance of songs. So it's like, well, I need to try and make these all work somehow. But I was not convinced that I would get them all to work. And the Happy Days song, not for the content reason of what was in it, but I couldn't get the mix. I just couldn't get the elements to work, and that was close. I was going mad, and there's some technical things, and there was some things with modern technology that I'd done something a slightly different way, and then that led me down this path, the wrong path for a long period, and then I have to come back and then listen to. I always have the original demo, always A/B the original demo to what you've got now, and that can be very revealing. I mean, I do that a lot, and I've got quite good at doing that and being honest with myself, because you want the new version to be better. You just spent, you spent a month, and you want to justify that month. You can lie to yourself and convince yourself, well, this. No, it is better overall, but it is not better. There's something about that demo that is better, even though there might be issues. And then I'm like, okay, well, what is it? How can I attack this then and keep what is good about it? So these type things happen. You need to get them in early to have space. And then that one was going right up to mastering. But luckily, I'd solved quite a lot of the other ones, and I was working on Wandering Genie. And then that one was still going on, and that was a difference of opinion between me and Thom. Like it was like I liked it having vocals going all the way through, and Thom felt that he'd over vocaled the song, and it's a valid position of like sometimes there's too much going on, and he knows that he does do that. So, it's kind of, he was like, I've probably just done too much, and the track's really good, and I don't want to overdo the track. And I'm like, yeah, I get that, but I think I don't think it's not working because of that. I think it's not working because of the difficult elements in the song that are fighting, and I just need to make more space. And then I tried to do that, and it was just really difficult to do. And then, and right up to the mastering, and then I did a compromise where I did one with a bit less vocals. He said take out a load of vocals, and I was really reluctant. But he was like, by taking them out, we'll find out what is the important part. So we did that. Got to a point where I was like, it works, but I still felt the original vocals that he did were right. And I could have been wrong. It's like that's the thing, I guess. But luckily, we trust each other straight away. Of like, okay, it's not like I'm right, you're wrong. It's like we need to, we're just trying to find a way to get this the best it can be. And I guess I'd resided to the fact that it may be this one with less vocals, and then I was like, I'm going to master both and see how it then feels with the record. And then, I just, it was like that was the last moment of like, okay, I still think this is better. Are you sure? Which I've done a couple of those, and I think he just went, no, yeah, you're right. And, I'm sorry that I caused you some extra shit. I was like, well, no, it's good. That's just the way it is, And there's other points where it was the opposite, where I was pushing something the wrong way that wasn't the right thing to do, and he was just like, nah, you've lost the vibe. And it's like, so that but I guess we've been collaborating long enough and know that it's just like, it's not a battle to win who's right or wrong. It's a battle to get the thing to be the best it can be, and the best version. There's lots of that stuff going on, and like, you just need time for that.
Well, I was going to say, obviously you worked together on Beautiful People, which was 2016. But with the new record, was there a moment where you knew it was going to work, where you're like, okay, yeah, this is definitely, going to work?
Yeah, there's certain songs that I wasn't sure about, but I became more sure about when everything else was coming together. And actually, two songs that I was not sure about until Jonathan made the videos, like Gangsters. I liked it, and I felt it made sense on the record. It's not a full song, and I knew when I heard it that the wrong thing to do would be to try and make it into something that it isn't. It's like it's quite instrumental. There's a kind of a verse goes away with this kind of percussive modular section that Thom did. Vocals come back in, not really like a full. It's like an 8-bar. Then there's little hints to it, and there's a hook that comes in that's going away. And I was just like, does it? I think when I first did it, I was like, probably need to write some more vocals. And then I was like, oh, no, it kind of works. And then you're like, well, I guess trying to make it something more. And then I knew that it was maybe the wrong thing to do. But then I'd settled on that by the time, because it's good with an album. You need different things. You got there's some long songs. You got like White Cliffs, which is 8 minutes with vocals going quite a lot all the way. It's a lot of vocals delivered, and the spirit in the album worked after that to lift you out of the heaviness of that song. And then Gangsters pulls you into a different place. It's a tempo shift. It's not as dystopian. It's a bit more playful. It's weird, surreal kind of lyrics, but it's a different feel. So I knew that it's important to have these things. But I still was unsure about it. Jonathan was sure about it, which is kind of useful. So I've got like a third person there as well. He's like, no, I really like that one, and that I think that's to me as important as the others. Same with Happy Days, which is his favorite one, and I really liked it. But I also knew that it was going to not be everybody's cup of tea. But I was confident enough in that song, the elements of the song, and Back in the Game it's an unusual mix. It's kind of quite hooky, quite poppy, hooky lyric delivery in the verses, quite a dark song, and then the ending's like a low, heavier feeling. And my instinct was you just do that feeling all the way through. But then what's interesting about it is it's not that. I mean, if we'd have done that all the way through, it sounded like what they call. My brain at the moment keeps blanking certain bands. Love Will Tear Us Apart.
Joy Division, yeah.
Yes, yeah. For some reason, Joy Division doesn't come when my brain goes to access it, and it was happening with Under. That one's settling down. Like Lou Reed comes, but not Velvet Underground. It's like, yeah. So yeah, I guess all like the darker new wave type music where it's a low vocal, it's moody. It's like, and I guess that's something to keep an eye on because I'm using old synthesizers, I'm using old drum machines. I'm very of the balance of, I don't want the record to sound like a 1970s record or an 80s record. And sonically, I want the overall feel to have the way it's mastered, the way it's put together. There's elements of that I don't want to lose, but I am using 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s drum machines and sounds. So I'm trying to keep an eye on that as well, of like, it needs to be different. It needs, lyrically, the lyrics can help that, the vocalists can help that. But it's something that I don't have an eye on it when I'm writing the music, but I have an eye on it when I'm trying to put the stuff together and getting the balance of things.
One of the things we mentioned briefly was you said you used a bassoon on one track and a core anglais on another.
Yeah.
Neither of which are your typical instruments you'd associate with rock music or electronic music or any kind of modern pop, for want of a better word, music. Like, how did that come about? Were you just looking for the tone?
Yeah, I kind of realized from just doing it a few times that if you sometimes on an electronic song, an interesting orchestral instrument in the mix can be really interesting, and it can really work. So I knew it was something that's worth trying. I've done quite a lot using flutes. I've done quite a lot of clarinets, and there are some clarinets on this one again. So I guess it's just like, well, what other? Just try another one. Just try. There's so many of the instruments, and it's worth trying them over these combinations because it can be really effective and just a nice different tone, something different again. And there's a lot of people, people have done it quite a lot. There's what is a song by what is it? Can't remember the name of the song now. Come on, brain. It's another one. It's because I haven't had enough sleep. The additional Genesis P-Orig's band.
Oh yeah. Oh God, I can't remember what they're called now.
Psychic TV, and
yeah.
There's actually it is a Psychic TV one, not one of the other projects. There's a song that got like kind of marimbas. It's not that electronic. It's got marimbas and it's got, I think, maybe bassoon or a oboe. There's lots of instances of this, I guess, over the years. It works quite well. So it was another thing. I was just like, well, I should just try it. I should try it. I've never used a bassoon. The guy that I'm working in the studio in the UK that was helping record some things in lockdown. He can play quite a lot of instruments. Louisa, who works with him, she can play clarinet, saxophone, flute, bass, sing as well, like amazing voice. But also he's based just up from Southampton, and he works with lots of people locally, so he knows people that, I think he also gets people from the local university, maybe Southampton, people that teach instruments. So I think, yeah, I wrote it with like I wrote the melody with a kind of like an orchestral library type sound, Spitfire library sound. And I always try and replace it. And what usually happens is I can't replace it, and it ends up being a combination, which also seems to help, because then you've got the real movement, and there's something about the unevenness of somebody playing something, and the room sound you're capturing is its own thing. So yeah, he found a bassoon player, and he found I think the cor anglais player was a teacher at the university or college. It was actually really nice. It was like, I don't know whether she'd done many sessions before. She was an amazing player. She would probably been playing it for 30, 40 years. Came in, she nailed it very quickly. And we just did a few more takes. Probably only literally took 20 minutes. And then just chatting for a little bit, and she kind of seemed to be enjoying herself. It's probably an unusual day. I'm going up to the studio to record. I don't think she was even aware of. I think Steve probably told her what it was for, but she may not have even known who Thom Yorke. Probably definitely wouldn't have known who I was.
You never know.
But yeah, that's quite nice. That was really nice. Those kind of things are nice. And so yeah, doing that. I find that kind of stuff can be really can work. So it's always there is like, why not always trying different combinations of things.
One of the things I really like about the album is that you've got Tom's vocals are going through effects on a lot. Like on Bugging Out Again, I think you said you put it through a rotating Leslie speaker, for example. He's obviously got a very well-known voice. He's got a beautiful voice. Was there ever a moment where, how did you feel like, I'm going to take this beautiful voice and put it through effects? Was there ever a moment where you're like, I don't know about this? Or was it just like, this is what the song needs, so I'm going to do it?
Yeah, I think because he was doing so much of it himself, I was more worried the other way, where I was like, he's just mashing his vocals up through pedals and modular systems, and that's great, but I don't want it to be all that. But he was instinctively doing it. He was doing it for the reasons of he's trying to find tonally how he sits in the track to match the feel of the sound of what's going on. Sometimes it's good just to record it naturally. Sometimes getting a certain sonic quality is a good idea to try and do. So he's doing it for those reasons, and he's also doing it for, I'd imagine he's doing it because he's just delivered an album of songs for the Smile, which he does. They do use some effects on, but I don't think he's singing. He's not mangling his voice as much on all of those songs. Definitely, I don't remember it on the first album anyway as much. So he's just done those vocals, and he's now got to do another 12. So it's like, well, I need to vary it up. He's sung a lot of songs over the years, and it's like, I guess it's with it like everybody else. He's finding new ways of doing things. Let's just sing through this modular system, sing through this pedal, see what happens. So he's doing it for, I guess, both those reasons. And then I thought I had lots of ideas of what to do with his voice, but I guess he was taking care of a lot of that. But then where there was moments like with Bugging Out, he'd recorded it with a handheld mic, I think, and it was the room I guess he was in at the time. It was close. He was close to the mic, and it was close up, and I felt like it needed to be more expansive. So that was a good moment to go. I didn't want to have to do it with reverbs. He'd put a delay on it, which worked, but I was like, I wanted this to sound like a different sonic to it. And I was like, well, if I put it through a Leslie speaker, and turns out it's quite difficult to do. And what's good about these things is that they're really random and uneven and messy. Also, you have to find ways to control that. But Steve from Vintage Key Studios in the UK, he had 2 Leslie speakers. I think he used maybe the older one. It's like a wooden one. I think it might be called the 760 or something. But he did some tests. He'd done some maintenance on it because the thing's annoying. It was really squeaky and like needed oiling. I got the noise down to they're really noisy. There's like a lot of hiss, which is good as well, because then you get this kind of like room noise with this kind of like constant, I guess a kind of modulation of it, volume modulation. And then he just found the right level. It's about getting the right level into those things, and there's a sweet spot where you're hitting it a little bit and it's starting to break, but then every pass you do is different. So once you got that level right, and it was like, no, this is sounding good, let's capture it. And then we just captured it 2 or 3 times at one speed, 2 or 3 times at the slower speed. And then there's also an offsetting where the horns are not spinning, but it's going through the speaker still, which actually sounded really interesting as well. But I really wanted to use that, but it was not needed. But then I could then comp between the different takes to get the best, because the thing's spinning and not synced. So sometimes it sounded better than others. So you're doing that kind of stuff, and then it was like a lot of really difficult EQ balancing to get that thing to sit in. But it did give it the sonic quality that I was after. It's like, 2 mics on the horns, a mic on the lower part of the speaker, which has like a more low end comes out of there, and then two room mics away from from that speaker meant that I could just put it in the space I wanted, and it's in the room, so it's like less up front, and then I've got the room mics to blend in, and it just gave it the sonic, and it really interesting, bigger sonic quality. So I guess I did one, you don't. I think if there's lots of vocals and they start messing up these vocals that are really beautifully recorded and it's an amazing performance. I mean, but I don't. I guess you would be a bit worried, but I think Tom's all for that stuff, and he encouraged me to do it on Back in the Game. That was quite natural sounding. I spent ages trying to get it to work, and I finally got it to work. And then he said, "Okay, now just get that and just mess it up." And I was like, "Okay." He's like, "We got to have fun with effects, go nuts." But I guess it was like, I had an instinct that they could take it somewhere more interesting. And it may not have worked, but I actually it took me a while to get used to. When I first did it, I was like, yeah, it's cool, but I don't know whether it's better. And it took me a while to live with it again, to work out, well, actually, this is actually more interesting. And then I just need to mix it slightly, like in between the two. So yeah, he's very up for, you know, he's not precious about his vocal being. I mean, he's not even precious about his vocal being loud. I mean, most of the time, he said it's too loud, and I don't mix vocals particularly loud. I don't think.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I like a really loud vocal, and that's the right thing to do on some music. But for years I was definitely doing it too quiet, and I got it to a point where I felt, well, I got better at doing that, I guess, over the years. And then he usually it was him saying that it's too loud. Just get it down half a dB or a dB. He would say down loads, but then it turned out it needed to go down 1 or something.
Well, look, Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you today. Thank you for generous with your time. I just want to ask one more thing, which is, say someone isn't aware of your work. It's such a rich catalogue, everything you've done, and so many different styles of music, from grime to jungle to ambient to techno. Well, so many things. Is there like one record? Let's say someone comes to your music via Tall Tales, and they want to like check out something from your past. Is there one record you'd send them to?
Yeah, well, I have had that issue, and we thought about that as well. It's like, well, people are going to come to this, and they probably won't be aware of anything that I've done. And then how do you we were thinking about maybe doing a compilation, but then it feels kind of quite right. We've done a few playlists, but I don't know how effective that is. And I've had people like messaging me on Instagram and various platforms going, well, what do you suggest? And it's tricky. If they like what they're hearing on this project, I usually say Under the Sun, because at least it's start there, and if you like that, then there's some other ambient music that I did, or whatever aspects of that you do like. And I could say, well, check out the Globe Communication album if you do like ambient music, because it's hard, because it depends on what they like. I don't know what it's. So yeah, I guess, and if they don't, because I guess the club music that I've made is specific to lots of different areas, and quite underground areas of movements that I guess I've been involved in. So I wonder what people will get. I guess it's, if they like an ambient song I've done, are they going to like a song that I've done with Rico, Dan, or Trim, or they're aggressive. It's aggressive music that is very English, with the Jamaican influence that England had. I guess people from all over the world, but they're it's Aggie English music. I like that. I like stuff that is moody and hard hitting and aggressive, as much as I like stuff that is not that, like funky soulful music or nice groove music. I like all those different things. So it's a tricky one. Yeah, I just try. I guess I ask them what kind of music they like usually, and then try and think about, well, if you like that, you might be worth checking that. Maybe check the Africa High Tech album out I did with Steve Spacek. But there's so many, it is hard. I just try and offer a few up, and then hopefully they can get a bit of an idea. And then also, if you like anything, let me know, and then I might be able to point you to something else in that area. But I don't think there's an easy solve on that. I've not made it easy for everybody, and like having all those different names and confusing, amounts of. I mean, in some ways, I still would like the fact that I did it. It happened because it had to happen. I guess at the time it was a reaction, because you're doing all those different things, and people were very much like, well, they assumed you were one. You did techno, so then you do a house song, and that guy's a techno guy. I'm not going to check that, and all the way through that's sort of happening, and it allowed the music to speak for itself, but it caused a lot of confusion, and I did stop doing it. There was a point where I was like, I mean, I can't think of any. I don't want to think of more names. I have enough names. And then, I was like, it was all me anyway, and all with me and other people. So I was like, we'll just do it. And I'm like older. Let's just maybe just try and say that. But I'm not against having another name. The idea is still it still has that saying. It still works.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking the other day, I was like, maybe I will just do something that not tell anybody.
Go back to the old.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's a tricky one, and we're trying to work out what to do about that. And I'm obviously wary of people's time. It's like, how much time have they got to go in down all this random areas of music that I've done? And so yeah, but I don't know whether there is an easy way to do it. But it seemed like doing it, I've been messaging people, that works. And I've not found a better way of doing it sort of yet. I didn't really want to the idea of doing a compilation felt like a good idea. But it felt kind of, or maybe it just felt potentially cheesy.
Right.
The best of Mark Pritchard, various styles. I was a little bit worried about it. And then I was like, should I just come up with a comedy? Just go all out with the comedy name for the record. But that's also been done quite a lot as well. So I was like, I don't know what to do. Maybe at some point we will try and do something. I mean, I do want to get some of that music back out there. There's a lot of it to try and get reissued, or at least just digital masters available, and there's a lot of that, and slowly trying to do that in the background. I'm gonna have to do more of that. As much as I like it for a small amount of time, but I don't like doing too much of it, because you start to feel a little bit like you're just going back to the past too much. It's like over obsessed with your own work. It's like that's the danger.
Let me offer up 3 brilliant songs that you've been involved with that we haven't even mentioned. I'm going to go. I mean, there's so many. I'm not saying these are my favorite 3, but these 3 we haven't mentioned. Global Communication, The Way, which is a brilliant deep house tune. SOS with the Space Lady, which is a lovely song, like really kind of really moving, that song.
Oh, nice.
And Why Not Links by Chameleon.
Yeah.
Which
I mean, I think, I guess The Way in the Deep, I feel comfortable about. It did do well, and it got played by DJs that I really loved, and I still like it. And then the Chameleon Links, I guess similarly, it was uploaded to YouTube, and it had like maybe the most plays of anything I'd ever done at one point. And then it got taken down, and then I've recently been told by somebody that there's some weirdness going on where somebody's claiming that they have the rights to the song, and that's not good looking. Which I felt somebody messaged me last week and said there's quite a lot of this going on where people are just taking a song that nobody's necessarily claiming now because it was on a label, and then that label aren't that active, and they're just taking the rights. And so they apparently did the takedown to the person that put it on YouTube, saying they own it. I was like, that's another thing I've got to sort out. I'm too busy at the moment. Once this album's done, I'll look into that one. But I think it's quite rife in lots of areas. People are just taking people's music and putting it on DSPs, which is nice. Which is nice for them. But yeah, I'm glad you like the Space Lady one, because I love her music, and I was really honored to be working with her, and I got to meet her as well. She did the vocal when she get similar thing where I sent her the song, and then she did the vocals, sent them back. But then she did play in Sydney a few years after in a really nice church. Not too far away from where my studio is now. So I actually did get to see her perform and meet her, which is really nice. And she's a very special person. And when I put that out, I didn't get much response from it. So I'm glad you like it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway, I should probably go. But thank you so much. Congratulations again on the new album, which is out May the 9th.
Yeah.
And yeah, lovely to speak to you. And hopefully, well, lots more to come, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting on with the next thing. I did start working on some stuff last year, and then this campaign started to kick in, and it's such a big. This is the biggest campaign I've ever done, I guess, for the amount of elements, with the record, the film, which was never going to be a film when all along we just thought Jonathan was just making 12 clips. There were not even necessarily 12 clips. It was like there's maybe one couple were going to be an installation, and then it just so happened that it seemed to make sense, that it worked better as a whole. And then we're like, how are we going to do this then? We're not film distribution people, so we've just luckily got some help from some amazing people who've got it into cinemas. And then there's a whole. When's this going out?
It will be, I think, just either the week before the album is released or just the week after. That's my plan.
Yeah, because there's another element coming, which is another part of the whole project, where there's a coin element that will become apparent, which is starting to get teased on social media at the moment. It's very, very slowly, not on my accounts. We just started to point. We're just starting to point to people. We don't want it to be we want it to be slow, and we want it to run for a long period. It has the potential that it could go for, basically coins are being hidden.
Okay.
And we're revealing the places. And I think in about a week that becomes a bit clearer. So it should be safe if it does come out in a week or two. Yeah. And then people have to find them, and they're kind of numbered, and then there'll be. I think some of them will never get found from a couple of the places that somebody just told me that they're going to hide them, which is kind of what we wanted.
You're listening to Radio Primavera Sound, proudly presented by Cupra.